and whoever that might be
We're recording now.
chooses to do. If they want to focus on governing, there are many, many, many willing partners, myself included. If they want to focus on, national security, if they want to focus on, making and one of the
5 seconds
that I think could be a highly successful effort, there's going to be a new select committee on China.
That was Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger of Virginia talking about what to expect in the year ahead. And basically, part of her answer is potentially gridlock. And I think many Americans are hoping that that is not the case. We will see what this new House particularly gets done. Obviously, in the Senate, Democrats have a bigger majority than they did in the last term, now 51 seats plus the vice president. So it is going to be really interesting to see what the Senate is able to achieve and then what happens in the House. I think a lot of people are anticipating a lot of very unpleasant investigations and the like. But, Republicans got a message in the 2022 midterms that they really needed to, that voters actually wanted to see Congress function and see people get things done. One of the things that got done that I mentioned earlier that happened right before the end of this term was the incredible bipartisanship of the Marriage Equality Act, which passed the House and the Senate thanks to support from some really smart Republicans who understand that this is an issue that the vast majority of Americans agree on, that has transformed in terms of public opinion certainly in my lifetime, and is one of these just basic civil rights issues that so many Americans really care about. And I think the Republicans who stood up in many cases against some really hateful corners of their own caucus to do what was right really deserve a lot of credit. I mentioned earlier that I was lucky enough to get to be at the White House on the day of President Biden's signing. And I was there in part because of this extraordinary person who's about to join us. And I was saying before the break that I thought that since we're in the last week of the year and politics can be a little grim, and it hasn't been the most uplifting end of year political season, that we needed to end this show today with some joy. And so I'm so excited that we literally are bringing joy on the show because we are joined today by the amazing, the talented, the brilliant, the beautiful Joy Aladakun, who, if you have not heard of yet, you will be hearing very soon. She has actually really been everywhere this year, and we're going to talk about that. She is a singer and songwriter she really spans the genres of folk and R&B, pop, rock. She's just incredible, and I am obsessed with her music. So I'm super excited that she's here, and I got to be with her, at the White House, which we will get to in a minute. But first, I want to say, first of all, welcome, Joy. Thank you for being on the show today. Welcome to the Laura Coates Show. Oh, I don't hear you yet. Uh-oh.
Let me figure that out. Hi, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here, and it's good to see you again.
Oh, we had some technical difficulties. It's great to have you. So first of all, Joy, can you introduce our listeners to you and tell them what you want people to know about you? I mean, you've had this extraordinary year, and we'll talk about some of the amazing attention that you've gotten, but I think, people are still getting to know you and get to know your music. So what do you want people to know about who you are and why you do what you do the way you do it?
Yeah, I started making music probably when I was a kid actually, but I started doing it as a job about 5 or 6 years ago. And the reason I wanted to just be a songwriter as a form of vocation was just so I could write music that I felt like related to the things that I was experiencing every day. I was sort of at a point where I was working a job where I was delivering rental cars to people via this app that's like Uber, but for renting a car.
Okay.
And I would listen to the radio all day, and it just felt so out of touch with what I felt like my life was like. And so I truly artist thing aside, I got into the music industry as a way of, I just wanted to write with artists that wanted to tell real stories about real people and real things. And it sort of on accident it turned into me singing songs about my actual life and real things as it does. But I think it's interesting to have found my way into this realm almost on accident. But it also gives me a fun perspective and drive, and I feel really lucky and honored to be able to do a lot of the things I do.
So what do you consider to have been like your big break? What was what was sort of a turning point for you musically? Because, people can spend years and years and years like playing small clubs and, local, joints and never got to the level that you've already achieved. I mean, you've just broken through, and we'll talk in a minute about some of the amazing work that's made it into television shows and movies and all of the rest of it. But you've had a remarkable year, but I suspect it was a slow burn to get here, as it is so often for so many artists.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely played all the small clubs and driven myself across the United States a couple times, to make some change. I think that it's an interesting job where like I feel like your big break happens like once or twice every year or every few
Mm.
years. Like you have sort of a success that feels defining, like maybe like my first big break happened on social media when Russell Wilson and Sierra used my song in the background of like their baby announcement video, and it just
Oh,
like
wow.
amassed, all these followers, and that's how I got like my publishing deal and record deal. And then, there's little things like I got to do a song with I guess not little things at all, but like I got to do a song with Chris Stapleton, or
Yeah.
going on tour with, a band like My Morning Jacket, or like Maren Morris, who's like become one of my favorite people and country artists. Like I think that it's just been a lot of like it sort of like interesting watershed moments. Like I had a song that was on This Is Us, and it was during like a really important storyline, and I love
How did that
television.
happen? I don't understand how this happens. I was like furiously Googling to figure out like how do you get a song picked up by like one of the most popular TV shows? I mean, obviously you're brilliant, but like how did that happen? Do you know even?
Man, I sort of do. I have an incredible team of people around me, and I try to give them like their flowers when they're due.
Mm.
Like I have like a team of people who like I'll send songs when they're just ideas to, and they work in like film and TV, and they try to like pitch music for shows like This Is Us and
Yeah.
Grey's Anatomy. And like the first thing I said when I met these people was like, I really want a song in Grey's Anatomy or This Is Us, and like that's that's all I care about. And so they just like they found a song called Breathe Again. That's this piano ballad about my anxiety that seemed to like
Mm.
fit this really big moment in the show. And what I really love is like all the like music supervisors, like people on TV shows who like work in music that I've met, really care about how the music like it fits the
Mhm.
story. And
And
as
that
an
seems to
artist,
be like a real part of your like how your work evolves. We'll talk it later about
yeah.
the movie music, but it does seem like there's something to that because your music is so story oriented and so personal that it seems to like beautifully resonate with all these other kinds of stories.
Yeah, I think I'm such a story centric like artist and writer that I think sort of I think it works really well in that medium because it's like we want songs that tell a story that matches up with the story that we're trying to tell. So it's my favorite part of my job if I'm if I'm being
Oh,
honest.
I
It's
love
really
that.
fun.
If you're
Yeah.
just joining us, I'm talking to Joy Aladakun, rising star, singer, songwriter, cross genre music of truly beautiful variety. And, I wanted to ask you about also your personal identity because you, as a Black woman, it's you cross so many genres that it feels like things in the music industry are sort of opening up. Like we're seeing more Black women in country, more Black women in folk, like sort of across these genres where they've been historically excluded. And I wondered if you feel like you're breaking barriers or if you just kind of do what you do. Like, how do you think about that? Because I can imagine, like, do people try to put you in a box as a Black woman? Are they surprised at the music that you make?
Yes, I think people are surprised and often confused. But I grew up in a house where my dad is from Nigeria, which is like West Africa on the hump, and like and his favorite artist of all time is Kenny Rogers. And so I think
That's
I grew up in a
amazing.
a musical world, at least, where anything is possible, and just like as long as it moves you and feels true or inspiring or like makes you want to dance, whatever your motive is for listening to music, as long as it serves the purpose, I think that there's something really beautiful about that. And so for me, I find whatever vehicle fits the story or the mood that I'm trying to tell. And so that genre wise, that has never really mattered. I really enjoy playing the guitar, and so sometimes I get sort of like put into the like country Americana lane, but I kind of just make
You do
music.
you. You do
Yeah.
you. You do you. I'm talking to singer-songwriter Joy Aladakun about her amazing 2022 year. And Joy, you had a lot of really big moments this year. You were on CBS This Morning, right? They did a whole
Yeah.
profile of you. Your songs were on several TV shows. We'll talk in a minute about it being on as part of the documentary about Al Sharpton. But also we met because, as I said before, you had a pretty remarkable moment not very long ago performing at the White House on the day of the signing of the Marriage Equality Act. And I wonder, I saw you that day. It was a lot. There was a lot going on. What a lot of people around, it was just a really glorious day. And for those of you who don't know, I mean, there were over 5,000 people that came out to the South Lawn of the White House that day. It was actually one of the most highly attended signing ceremonies in White House history. It was a beautiful sunny day. It was just an ecstatic, sort of joyful Joy. I keep coming back to your name, which seems so appropriate, but it was such a joyful day for everyone who was there. It just felt like such a great moment. And you got to be there to sing. And I wondered what that felt like for you.
Yeah. I mean, I had a moment in the dressing room by myself before we went out, and that's just something I try to always do because as an anxious human, I just need that like 5 minutes to breathe or whatever. And I think I took the time to like look at myself in the mirror and be like, as a Black queer person, like to be there in that moment, like in that space at this time in history. I think it's funny, I'm at my parents' house right now, so there's a lot of nostalgia bubbling up. Like as a kid, I don't know that I thought that that world was possible. And I'm not talking about the world where it's I'm singing at the White House, but just like the world where, you know, uh, the idea of someone being able to love someone is not so controversial anymore. I think that in the moments before playing, I just took a lot of time to be like, this is, I don't know, there's a
Mhm.
significance to what this moment represents and to the fact that I survived to the point that I was able to participate in it. And yeah, I think that because my music is so personal, I write a lot about my queerness, and I write a lot about, the ways in which that has made me feel like I don't fit in or have made me, search for belonging. And that is one of those moments where like the essence of being at the White House for that signing is just like it was a message, from systemically that like there's space for people like me
Mm.
on this planet, and there's respect towards like our love and our care and like our
Mm.
families. And so I think that like
It
that
was bigger
above
than you.
all.
It was bigger than you.
Yeah, it was massive. I had like a small Sister Rosetta Tharpe pin
Mm.
on my jacket, and I just, I think about her, or like even like Janis Joplin. Like I really love rock music, and so all my favorite
Mm.
women in music are rockers. And so I I just think they lived in a world where they couldn't be super, super open about their
Mhm.
queerness. Uh and on top of that, even their creativity was
Yeah.
controversial. And I wore the pin as just a reminder of like how like I think they would marvel at the life I get to live. And so I try to marvel at the life I get to live as often as I can, because it's like so many people really like lived entire lifetimes and lived
Mhm.
entire storylines in which it was completely the opposite. So I feel really, I don't know, I feel really hopeful about
Mm.
the future and about humanity and about even like our country, in the sense of I hope we continue to move in a way that like allows us to to just fight for the greater good for each
Mm,
other and
mm.
like and stop fighting each other as much. And I think that's what was so cool about how bipartisan that bill had to be, and like how there's just so much
So
beauty
much. Oh, it's
surrounding it.
beautiful. Well, I'm talking to Joy Aladakun, if you're just tuning in, singer, songwriter, and just genre crossing magical musician. And we're talking about her extraordinary year. And, I think I was thinking when we were at the White House that day that, I hope, I believe that I'm maybe part of the last generation that will ever experience a world where people have to hide their identity or
Yeah.
fear to come out. And I look at what kids today, the freedom that kids today have, it's not a world free from homophobia. Obviously, there's still challenges, but
Yeah.
the fact that like my daughter, has a 13-year-old boyfriend who's come out already. It's just extraordinary. Like I couldn't imagine that in my childhood. And I had friends who were closeted all the way into their 20s. And, I'm not that old, people. My daughters think I mean, people think I'm old, and sometimes I
No.
feel really old. I feel especially old when I'm on technology. But anyway, I digress. The point is that I'm not that old, damn it. I'm not
You're
that
not that old.
old. But, in my lifetime, and I think I've always looked at the attitudes towards gay rights as, to your point, Joy, about I've always looked at it as one of the most hopeful signs of what we are capable of as humans and as people, that when folks started really coming out in the 1980s and 90s, and Americans came to realize that they loved someone who was gay, and they didn't know that they loved someone who was gay, but someone they loved was gay, that changed so dramatically public opinion in this country. And to see where we are today, that it's bipartisan, it's men and women, it's people from all walks of life and all over the world now, right? These conservative Catholic countries that are passing gay marriage. And it's really, I agree with you. I think it is like one of, in these dark moments where it feels like everything is it's so easy to go down the like dark hole of everything is terrible in the world. It is really an amazing ray of light, as is your music. So I want to talk to you before we close about your song Power, which I love. If you haven't seen it, for our listeners, there's a really fantastic new documentary about my colleague from MSNBC, Reverend Al Sharpton, and it's called Loudmouth. And I think it was produced by Spike Lee, right? It chronicles his incredible, unusual, remarkable career in public life, and how his evolution as a person, and his crusade for civil rights and justice, which he continues to this day. And I'll just say, from a personal perspective, I love being on Morning Joe with Rev. He is so gracious to me, and just always really thoughtful. And he listens in a way that I'm always amazed by. And I will just say, not all the dudes on Morning Joe listen. I love my colleagues. I love my colleagues, but there's definitely some moments where you're like, they're just waiting for me to stop talking, which maybe our listeners are. But anyway, the Rev is never like that. And not only does he listen, but he's just the most respectful, loveliest colleague you could imagine. And so I was really excited about this documentary. And then and you have the theme song for this documentary. So tell us about the song. We're going to hear a little clip of it in a minute, but tell us about this song, which has like, oh, just love it.
Yeah. I got a text message that they were looking for an end credit song for the Al Sharpton movie. And I, as a Black person, went, yeah, I'll do it. Like it took me it took me 10 minutes to write. I truly,
Wow.
when I like talk about it, I think it's one of those things where uh the whole like theme of the song is about how like we all have power and like deserve like the ability for that power, and that, I don't know, to be respected and to be honored and to like exercise like boundaries and protection when we need to. And I think that I wrote it so fast because I needed to write it. I think it was one of those things where like when something happens like that feels like magical, it's not because I'm special. I think it's because
You were
like life,
channeling something.
Yeah, I think life, at least for me, music works in a way where it's like life will sort of like it snowball some
Mm.
lessons at me, and then I'll use the song as a way to process it. And this was definitely no different. And I just wanted to honor like uh, uh, Al Sharpton to me represents a life of service, maybe so like different from the path that we imagine when I say something like a life of service, right?
Mhm.
Like to to fight for the dignity of an entire people group, like across a nation, and
Yep.
to like to do that consistently with your entire life. Like Al Sharpton deserves all the flowers and
Mhm.
honor and care. And as an artist, and as a Black artist at that, like I just wanted to write something that like felt like it encapsulated what his life has given us and continues to give us, which is like it just affirms our validity as a people.
And I got to say, as I mentioned, because I get to be on television with him quite frequently, I will say that he also stands up for women in some really remarkable ways. And he was sharing with me on the show a couple of weeks ago, actually right before the election. We were talking about some of the gender bias in politics, and he was talking about the number of Black men that were calling into his show and denigrating Stacey Abrams and
Hmm.
essentially saying that they felt there was enough Black women in power, we didn't need her. And he really stood up for her and pushed back against the men that were calling in. And I just thought it was really indicative of him. So I'm going to ask Ajara, can we play a quick clip of Power? Because it's so good. And then everyone has to go and download it on iTunes.
I'm gonna play it for a little bit, and then I'm gonna pot you up with the music under you, and then
Yeah.
we can.
And then I can rap. Mm-hmm.
No use fighting all of the people.
Mic is hot now.
People got power, power. Na, 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 na.
I'm not going to lie, I've listened to it like 100 times. That's the song Power by the amazing Joy Aladakun, who's joining me on the show today. And I wanted to end today's show with some joy. And so she brings it. She brings it. So, Joy, in our last minute, tell me about what you're looking, where can people see you next year? I know in a lot of places, but what's ahead for you? It feels like a
Yeah.
lot of limitless possibility, but what's ahead for you in 2023?
Yeah, in 2023, I'm going on tour, which is as you do. There's this amazing folk artist named Noah Khan that I'm friends with on top of just like being a fan of, and so we're just hitting the road in the summer. But I have a record coming out. I'm just kind of just fishing and taking care of myself until then. But I
Oh,
don't know.
fishing, literally, that's not a
Yeah, no,
metaphor.
no, actually fishing. No, like actually fishing for
Okay,
fish in
go
bodies of
fish.
water. Yeah,
Go fish for
go
fish.
fish. Yeah, it's relaxing to me, I guess.
That's great.
But yeah, I'm just sort of like I'm in slow mode until like I announce
It's
the album. You know,
It's
a
going to be a
surprise,
shot out of a
surprise.
barrel, I think, because you are on a rising star. And I'm so grateful that you were willing to take a little time out of your well earned holiday to come talk to us. And
Thank you for
Joy
asking me.
Aladakun, everyone needs to go download the song Power. And also my favorite, which is Look Up. But they're all so
Thank
beautiful.
you.
And if you haven't heard Joy Aladakun, you will, because she's going places. Joy, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
This is Lauren Leader. You're listening to the Laura Coates Show, and we are coming to the end of the show, but stay with us. We are going to wrap up in just a few minutes after the break.
POTUS. SiriusXM Channel 120.
You guys are clear.
Thank you.
And on the SXM app.
Thank
Have a
you
great
so much.
holiday, hon. Be well.
You too.
Happy New Year.
Bye. You too.
All right, Ajara, I got 8 minutes left, right? Or 7?
You actually will